An Apple a Day by Hyperme. Chapter 2. Now, what did you say you have again?
Mononucleosis. You must be aware, doctor, of mononucleosis, the disease of heart swelling, sweaty palms, nervousness, and heart flutters. How is there such thing? Then how do you explain my symptoms? Hideki-san, you have green skin, yellow polka dots, and a blue tongue. Nowhere in my teachings and medical books is there a disease called mononucleosis, or mama symptoms of green skin, yellow polka dots, and a blue tongue. There must be, if I have it. Maybe it is a brand new disease caught only by myself.
It had been 1 week, 7 days since Elle's last visit. Of course he did nothing but eat sweets, not exercise, sleep in odd patterns, if at all, and work on that stressful case. Although his stomach continued to protest in pain, he never felt happier. Most of all, he stayed away from apples. In fact, whenever he saw the red fruit, he would toss it out a window, light it on fire, or hide it in a place he knew Watari would never find them. In the meantime, Elle spent the majority of his time thinking of diseases to come and see the doctor with, even going out of his way to hack into Yagami-sensei's schedule and blackmailing all of the recipients on the list for the day he was to make his visit. Elle stared at the twitch in Yagami-sensei's caramel eyes and wondered briefly if he was being a little too pushy in his ways of making the doctor is, but he dismissed it from his thought process the second it appeared. Yagami-sensei rolled his caramel eyes, running manicured fingers through sleek honey-colored hair. Hideki-san, you seem like an intelligent man. Why are you coming to me with a fake illness you know you made up? Elle tried to bow cutely for the doctor. I dyed my skin green and yellow for you, sensei, he purred, trying to sound seductive. I even drank a large blue raspberry Slurpee for you. Let me guess. Yagami-sensei crossed his arms over his chest. That Slurpee you ate hurt your stomach, didn't it? At Elle's silence, he continued, knowing he was right. You also didn't follow any of my instructions from last week, did you? Yagami-sensei is very good at seeing through me, Elle commented, biting his thumb. I can live with a few stomach pains if I get to see Yagami-sensei. You won't be living for long if you keep ignoring them. Can't you see you're due for diabetes, heart failure, and obesity, along with many others if you continue to live this way? You'll be dead in a few years. And I also told you to stop sitting like a gargoyle. But you apparently enjoy not listening to me now, don't you? Elle nodded his head, corners of his mouth quirking upward. This was more entertaining than he had previously imagined. Elle pulled a small jawbreaker out of his back pocket and popped it in his mouth. Yagami-sensei scolded at the motion, and Elle took great pride in such an expression. This was going to be very entertaining indeed. Since we can both safely say you are not sick, except the cramps in your stomach are due to junk food, you may leave now, Hideki-san. You have yet to check me, doctor, Elle protested. I didn't get to take my shirt off. I saw how emaciated you are last week, despite your overeating of nothing but cake. Yagami-sensei sighed at the stubborn frown on Elle's face. You are wasting both my time and yours, and your money, Hideki-san, with this pointless visit. I'm still charging you. Yagami-sensei has no other appointments today. If it were not for me, he would be very bored, would he not? How did you... The doctor paused, thinking, and then glared. You had my other patients cancel their appointments for today, didn't you? You hacked into my schedule. What makes you think that? Elle said, looking the very picture of innocence. Yagami-sensei yelled, How else could you have known I had no other appointments today? He stopped himself and took a deep breath in. I think it's time you leave now, Hideki-san. You are not sick, and I suggest you eat properly, starting with apples. I don't want to see you in here again unless it's an absolute emergency. Got it? Elle nodded. Yes, sensei. But behind his back his fingers were crossed. How would you like an apple? Watari asked. No. Blueberries? No. Cherries? No. Strawberries? No. Orange? No. Pear? No. Cake? Yes. Look, Master L, I bought vitamins. Watari excitedly held up a container of children's SpongeBob vitamins. Elle yawned. So, I'm not going to eat them. Why not? They taste like chalk. Elle frowned, watching the detective leave the kitchen, waving his hand as if to say discussion over. He looked down at the children's SpongeBob vitamins, a smiley yellow sponge grinning widely back at him. He peeled off the seal and popped one in his mouth. He grimaced. They were hard, poorly flavored, and most definitely chalky. He threw them in the garbage and returned to the groceries.
Oh, and Watari,
L asked, sticking his head back in.
would you bring me a plate of cookies?
The elder man nodded. Once the man was out of the room, he smirked viciously, evil laughter threatening to break through. 10 minutes later, Watari had created a plate of chocolate chip cookies and brought them into the computer room. He noticed that L was still clutching his stomach, but made no comment. He believed he made enough for one day. He placed them on the desk to the right of the computer mouse and left the room. L snatched the cookie, examining the dessert carefully, a habit he had developed after the first attempt to sneak apples in his food. With a satisfied nod, he tossed the cookie whole in his mouth. He smiled.
They're warm.
Reaching for another cookie, L noticed 2 red gummy bears laying innocently on the side of the plate. He grinned, silently thanking whoever for letting him find that wonderful man Watari, and gobbled them quickly. For a split second, L was positive he heard an evil cackle, but he shrugged, chomping on another cookie. Watari was reading an article on the solved murder attacks in Uruguay by no other than Heraldo Coyle in International Crime magazine in the empty waiting room. He overheard 2 nurses talking, interrupting his business. "Oh, now, look who Raito-sensei is seeing right now." The blonde girl pointed to the computer screen, half giggling, half sighing. The girl next to her leaned over, staring at the computer screen. "Hideki Ryuga? Who is that?" The blonde girl slapped her forehead. "Of course, I'm sorry, Kiyomi-chan. I forgot this is only your 3rd day on the job. Hideki Ryuga-san is this incredibly bizarre patient. This is his 3rd Tuesday here. He only appears on Tuesdays, and for some reason, all other appointments that day are canceled by the original patients. The first week, he was in for a normal checkup because he wasn't eating correctly. Only cake, coffee, and candy. And he's underweight, for crying out loud. That little bastard. I'm going to strangle that metabolism out of him." "What's so bad about him, Misa-chan?" "Oh, right. Well, the next Tuesday, he came in with green skin, yellow polka dots, and a blue tongue, claiming he had a disease called, Mano something. Anyway, the point is, he's back this Tuesday, all other appointments canceled, and now he has a new illness that he absolutely must see Raito-sensei for." "Do you think maybe this Hideki-san is infatuated with him? Raito-sensei is very handsome and could charm a snake out of a barrel. Hideki-san is most likely trying to get his attention with his weird sicknesses." Misa bit the inside of her bottom lip. "I never thought about it, but that could be true. I've already called dibs on Raito-sensei, though." "You told me he rejected you 5 times already, Misa-chan." "It was 7, actually." "Do you think this Hideki-san has a chance?" "No, of course not. He's underweight, messy, and talks weird. He probably does nothing but sit at home in the dark, dressed in nothing but his underwear, and thinks of ways to seduce Raito-sensei. He probably jacks off to him too, the pervert. Who would want a boyfriend like that?" Watari smiled to himself, turning the page in his magazine. His young master L sure was something different. L really outdid himself this time. He was generally sick, and the thought made him feel so elated he had the overcoming need to jump onto the examination table to hear the wax paper crinkling under the pressure of his weight. Sadly, his body was slow and sluggish, no matter how fast-paced his mind ran. He could barely bring himself to have the energy to lift his body onto the examination table. He shivered and waited impatiently for the scrumptious doctor to see him and his real sick germs. L had stood out in the rain for 4 hours in nothing but a light white shirt, blue jeans, and no shoes. He also turned on the air conditioning to an extremely low temperature and proceeded to sleep for 5 hours, a new record, in only his boxers. He couldn't have done any better even if he grabbed a used tissue from the garbage can in a doctor's office, although his fear of germs didn't allow him to go that far. He better be grateful, he thought, wiping his nose with his arm. L doesn't get sick for just anybody. He frowned at the snot on his sleeve and quickly rubbed it onto the examination table, hearing the soft steps of Raito Yagami. Dr. Yagami didn't bother to knock on the door, already looking sour when he stepped in. He calmly closed the door and turned his bitter glance upon him. L perked up immediately, nearly bouncing on his feet as he rolled his caramel eyes and walked towards him. "This is the 3rd Tuesday in a row, Hideki-san. What is it this time?" Yagami-sensei must guess. It is more enjoyable that way. His voice sounded stuffed and nasally, although he struggled to maintain its muzzle tone. He scowled. "I don't know. Coconiman? A made-up disease of bags under your eyes? Or maybe you have Hugotius,
The disease of ratty, uncontrollable hair. El shook his head. Yagami-sensei is quite creative, but none of those are it.
He peered at El's face.
Your skin is neither green nor with yellow polka dots, although it does appear to be pinker than before.
El sneezed as if almost on cue.
I have a fever, Yagami-sensei.
Yagami moved in closer, and El, cooled and eager for warmth, leaned in. A warm palm pressed against his forehead, making El's eyes feel heavy as they slipped closed. He tilted his head upward and nearly purred. Yes, you are burning up. What did you do this time? It was raining quite heavily last night. Did you stand outside in the rain for 4 hours and then sleep in a cold room in nothing but your underwear by chance? El popped open his eyes, frowning as the hand felt his skin.
Yagami-sensei has a remarkable sense of seeing through me.
He smiled, shivering in the cold room. The doctor noticed the quiver and walked to the closet. He pulled out a thick red fleece blanket and threw it on top of El's trembling body.
This blanket is quite warm, however, it does not cure me. Shall Sensei fix me now? I can take off my shirt if it helps. Keep the shirt on, you're cold enough as it is, he growled, sitting gracefully upon his stool. There really is no need to be dragging yourself to a doctor over a simple fever. There's not. I seem to have wasted a good 9 hours of my life then yesterday.
El frowned as he eagerly wrapped the warm blanket around his body.
Not unless your fever worsens. A trip to the doctor's office is just a waste of your time and money, although you really don't seem to mind that, now do you?
El gave him a tired smile.
You need rest, blankets, vitamins, and some hot tea or soup. I suggest skipping out on dessert and taking the next 2 days off from work and sleep your fever off. I cannot do that. I have lots of work that needs to be done.
El retorted quickly, snuggling deeper into the blanket, looking like an Eskimo.
You should have thought about that before you got yourself sick.
Yagami-sensei sighed.
There's really nothing I can do but sit in your home. I heard, Yagami-sensei, that the best way to warm up is with body heat, naked body on naked body.
El purred, spreading the blanket open like wings, inviting the doctor to join him.
I will get healthier faster this way, and I know that a doctor's job is to make his patients healthy as soon as possible. Yes, you do have a point, Yagami-sensei said, tapping his finger to his chin. He opened the door to his office and yelled out, Misa-chan, Kiyomi-chan, would one of you two please... Yagami-sensei is so dense.
El muttered aptly.
You should know that I do not want their help.
I do know that, Yagami-sensei insisted with a short laugh. I just like messing with your head. He paused, as if he just realized something, while El mumbled some curses under his breath.
Did you eat any apples yet?
El grinned.
Of course not, Sensei. El-sama, why so keen? El-sama. Raito, he's doing great, thanks for asking.
The investigation team suddenly heard a loud crash coming from El's computer speakers, followed by a soft groan. Oh? Watari asked, speaking for the second time that day. I'll go update.
Yes,
the computerized voice responded.
I leaned over too far to retrieve a file. Please excuse me.
El mentally cursed at the chief as he pulled himself back onto his chair. Even if he was his future father-in-law, he had no right to pull El out of that glorious daydream. Speaking of glorious daydreams, El thought was the miserable sigh. This one was the 73rd he's had of the doctor since he last saw him 6 days ago. They ranged from simple dates to heavy petting to chaste kisses to full-out sex with whips, chains, and one very naughty Yagami. Dear God, what was that man doing to him?
El, are you ready to begin? Yes, Matsuda, please continue. Well, we got some insight on the suspect of the doctor fraud cases.
El frowned, a hatred stirring in his already painful stomach at the mere name of the case. It took all of his experience not to throw up or pass out at the sight of the gruesome pictures of young adults.
Erochiku Isha,
El commented with a slight twitch.
Yes, he was just treated for a slight concussion and a sprained ankle, as said by Chief Source. And those are the same medical problems our murderer has.
El interrupted, realizing where Matsuda was going.
During the little chase we put him through with the police, he slammed his head on the sidewalk when he tripped on his sprained ankle only a few moments before he escaped. We also picked up on a hint about Aisha,
Deputy Yagami said.
He is planning his next victim for next Monday. He's supposedly going to be at the Ageha. Ageha is a very big nightclub. We can easily lose him in such a large and crowded building. It will be easy for a skilled seducer like Isha to pick up one or maybe a couple of victims. I'm assigning homework.
Elle ignored the groan from Matsuda, the confusion from Deputy Yagami, and the angry look on Aizawa's face. He was relieved to have such a hard-working member on his team like Mogi, who never complained no matter what Elle threw at him.
First, I want you to come up with a good plan for next week regarding Isha's attempts to kidnap, cut up, and murder yet another victim. Second, I want a list of medical problems severe enough for a doctor's professional examination, the longer the better. That is all. We will meet again on Wednesday.
The screen went blank. Watari wiped the sweat from his brows, smiling. Carrying 30 pounds of apples up 10 flights of stairs wasn't as easy as people thought. He settled all 5 bags on the table, and then scolded himself as he remembered that he had left the strawberries in the car trunk. He muttered curses all the way down the stairs, grabbed the strawberries, and mumbled some more on the way up. He opened the door to their kitchen and hollered, "Lawlet!" The detective peeked around the corner very slowly, hiding part of his innocent masked face behind the wall.
Yes, Watari?
He asked naively. "Lawlet, where are the apples?"
What apples?
"The apples that were right here on the kitchen table."
I did not see them.
"You are holding a piece of chocolate cake in your hand right now, are you not? The one I specifically told you not to touch." Elle moved out in the open with the evidence in his hand. He looked shamefully at the ground. "So, if you were in the kitchen, then how did you miss 30 pounds of apples on the table? They were right in front of the refrigerator."
I do not know, Watari.
"How did you possibly move 30 pounds of apples in the 2 minutes I was gone?" Elle shifted one foot to the other. "Well?"
I dropped them.
Watari rushed to the window to find only about half of the apples splattered among the pavement.
The homeless man took the majority of them. I am sure you are aware of the homeless man that lives beneath this window.
Indeed, Laliet could clearly see the homeless man dancing around, arms full of the expensive apples Watari had bought and dragged up those flights of stairs. "Laliet?"
Yes, Watari?
"Give me that cake."
But, Watari, I need...
"You do not need that cake. Give it here." Elle reluctantly handed over the cake and watched in horror as it was tossed out the window. The sound of the homeless man's cheers nearly made his eyes water. "The only thing you are allowed to eat for the rest of the day is fruit. I'm after to throw you out the window to retrieve those apples."
Well, then I guess I will stop today.
Elle spun on his heel and hunched out of the room. "Well, fine. Starve!" Watari yelled at his back. Elle ignored him and walked into the computer room. As he approached his computer desk, he quickly glanced over his shoulder. He dropped to his knees and pawed at the floor until he found the loose floorboard. With a grin, he unlocked the secret hideaway. He reached in and grabbed a handful of miniature chocolate bars.
Starve indeed.
He popped one in his mouth.